Welcome to another Tom Bilyeu Show Live. It is wonderful to have you guys here. This is a very fun relationship. I don't know why it's hitting me so hard right now, but it is wonderful that you guys join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. This is fantastic. The world is in a very weird place right now. So getting to spend this time with you guys, I think about you all the time on the weekends as I'm preparing for this stuff, especially. And this weekend was incredibly bizarre. If you're a perpetually online type, my apologies. This weekend was, I would say, extremely anxiety producing given all of the different things that are popping off at once. Iran confirms that the Strait of Hormuz is now open to everyone except the US, Israel, and their allies, which, if I'm being honest, is a brilliant move and something that I said, I don't know, a couple weeks ago at the beginning of this, that would be sort of the end game for them. So we'll see how that plays out. Trump put out a call to all of our allies to help us secure the Strait of Hormuz after that announcement and get that oil flowing again. But everyone ghosted him, and that's why you don't bully your allies. Rumors have been flying this weekend that Netanyahu is dead and that the Israeli government is using AI video to cover it all up. We're going to get into that. Drew and I saw this one differently. I'll let you know when we get into that one which side your guys' poll came up on. Who is right? We'll find out. Politico confirmed that China had 26 military aircraft and 7 naval ships around Taiwan over the weekend. Whatever could they be doing? Tucker Carlson is reportedly being investigated by the U.S. Department of Justice for back-channel communications with Iran. That one's interesting. The Democratic Socialists of America are headed to Cuba, and somebody on this show is not happy about it. But speaking of things that we are happy about, a man used ChatGPT to cure his dog's cancer, which is incredible. So we're going to be getting into the economics of Cuba and all of that and more. But Drew, welcome, man. This was a wild weekend. People were convinced that Netanyahu's dead. There have been videos going back and forth. Netanyahu and the supreme leader of Iran at the same coffee shop. Who would have thought?
But that was like a Sunday thing. People forgot Friday and Saturday, California was on warning that we might get attacked. So every time a plane flew over, everybody was like, wait, is this it? You know,
is this the one?
Is this the one? So it's, thank God we got through it. We got through the weekend. But Larry Silverstein just took out an insurance policy on the U.S. Tower building. Yeah. Especially for terrorist attacks. So if anybody's in downtown,
if that building goes down,
watch yourself.
If that building goes down, that's one of those, like, if I'm Iran, I'm like, bro, we gotta, we gotta,
please just give me one strike.
This is going to freak the Americans out.
Yes.
Yeah. The conspiracy theorists would be, up big.
They would be up big. That would split to the Republic at that point. Jesus. But okay, we got to talk about Iran. Your main talking point, and I'm going to give you credit for this because you called it first while everybody was playing team ball and high-fiving. You're saying this is economics. This is going to come down to the strait. This is going to come back to the money moving through the river or through the water. And it seems like Iran is making a very political good move right now by saying the strait is open to everybody who's not shooting bombs at us.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, I think they're holding the cards, as Trump would say.
Yeah, they've got the hand. Yeah. That is for sure. I think that when you're really trying to figure out what's going on in this, you have to look to what is going to be the pressure point that you have. In any negotiation, you always want to figure out where your leverage is. Mm-hmm. The leverage in Iran is very much the Strait of Hormuz. Everybody knew that coming into it. But I think that Trump may have had a read on our allies that just wasn't accurate. I think he was thinking, hey, we helped you guys out with NATO. Hey, you've got a war looming with Russia that may spread into your actual Europe proper. And so you're going to want to make sure that you keep us happy. Yes, there's friction, but if we need you, you guys better come to our aid, because if you don't, we're not going to come to yours when things really kick off in Europe. And they are not coming to his aid. And they definitely, first it was people just not really saying, being non-committal. Now more and more countries, even ones that have been historically more pro-Trump, are now like, nah, we're not putting our troops into this one. So this is a very brutal lesson that if you're going to bully your allies, there are going to be consequences to this. This is something that I've been saying for a while. You have to be very careful. Just because you have the leverage doesn't mean that you want to push it, because there are going to be consequences. Remember, society is weak men getting together and saying, this is how we're going to develop this strength. And so a lot of what you see at like the high society level is going to be very spite driven, very relational, very transactional. And so things can get petty, things can get ugly really fast. And so we're watching a lot of that play out, and you will find out very quickly that petty or not, when people organize together, they are very strong and they can take down even the biggest bully. So this is not a time where we want to find ourselves alienated, and this is a time where we are finding ourselves alienated. So it'll be interesting to see if we're actually able to escort ships through the strait or not. Right now, I would say the odds are very low that we're going to be able to escort troops through. So Trump's going to have to first do something to escalate, and that could be further attacks on Karga. Is it Karga Island? Is that what it's called? Something like that. It sounds roughly like that. So what they call it the Diamond of Oil or something. Yeah. So there's a small island off the coast of Iran that processes something like 90 to 94% of their oil. And so it's one of those targets that's like, man, it is right there. Trump has not wanted to strike the oil infrastructure specifically because, one, I think that it's morally the right thing to do. If you're really trying to figure out, hey, we want to soften up this target, we want to deny them a ballistic missile capability of reaching the U.S., we want to make sure that they don't become nuclear armed. If we're being honest, that is not his entire motivation. I think his motivation is largely economic. I think it's largely aimed at China. I think he's trying to damage them, which he is, by the way, and is not being talked about very much. But nonetheless, you've got all that playing out. He's trying to keep the oil infrastructure safe so that if there were an uprising or at least a Venezuelan style dictator that comes into the picture and is willing to play ball with the U.S., he wants to make sure that they're able to rebuild quickly. I think that that is wise, but he's going to keep escalating. So this will be the tell as to whether he's going to put boots on the ground or not. If he puts boots on the ground to actually take the island, then I'll say odds just skyrocketed that he's marching us ever towards accepting boots on the ground in mainland Iran. If he stays air campaign even on the island, then I think the odds are lower that he'd be willing to put boots on the ground in mainland Iran. So we shall see. But I think striking the actual oil infrastructure is going to be an action of last resort, but he is going to get that straight back open. Like, let there be no mistake. Like, this either becomes catastrophic failure or he gets the straight back open, because right now it is, even if Saudi Arabia, that has this pipeline that runs across the desert and goes over to the other side, if I'm not mistaken, first of all, it goes to the side that the Houthis are on. But even if I'm wrong about that, the pipeline itself becomes a soft target. And so that's not going to be a silver bullet fix for any of this. So Iran has massive leverage when it comes to disrupting the global economy. And if you disrupt the global economy, as much as we might have quote unquote allies, they can only go so far when their own people are watching companies close because they don't have the oil to keep them running, when people, are dealing with intolerable levels of unemployment, when people are losing a lot of their modern way of life because energy needs just become so dire. All of a sudden, they hate everything that their government is doing. They hate everything that the U.S. is doing. This is the same pressure that we apply on other countries. And so now it can be applied at the global level, and you will get a very negative reaction. So,
to your point of boots on the ground, the U.S. has deployed 2,200 Marines, some sailors to the region, as well as 3 tankers. They relocated them from Japan into the Middle East. So that seems like the pretense to at least a small contingent of boots on the ground.
It's certainly preparation.
Yeah. We have to talk about the story of the weekend, though, because Bibi Netanyahu posted this picture from his X account saying, hey, they say I'm what? Look at me. Look, I have 5 fingers. I took a sip of coffee. There's a bunch of people there. The coffee shop in Israel also posted on their Instagram behind the scenes photos and things like that. It set the internet on fire. A lot of people are saying it's AI. The coffee didn't move. The sip on his lip disappeared. His zipper disappeared. People are zooming into the cash register and all these other types of things.
Yeah, among many, many other things. All right, to understand this one, you guys are going to have to start at the beginning. The weekend played out something like this. Netanyahu's dead, but probably alive, with 6 fingers. No, wait, it's 7. But this is in 2024, or maybe it was during COVID. I promise, if you just heard me say all that, I'm not having a stroke. If you were online this weekend, you know exactly what I mean. And if you weren't, you are in for a treat, because it all started with an Instagram account with 13.5 million followers that dropped a post claiming Benjamin Netanyahu was dead because he appeared to have 6 fingers in a video. Now, I encourage you aggressively to check out the video for yourself. You'll see the supposed 6 finger is a part of his palm. When I first saw it, I was like, wait, what? Like, are people trolling? This is obviously part of his palm. If you look at it closely, if you just pause the video and look at his finger, the region of his finger even has a name. It's called the hypothenar eminence. So there you have for the nerdy kids in the crowd. Now, if you ran that original video through a deepfake detection tool, according to Grok anyway, the rating comes back at 0.1% chance of being AI generated. And I have to say, looking at it with my own eyes, and there's no doubt AI is getting very, very good, but it seems pretty normal and was not the kind of thing that I expected the internet to go absolutely haywire over. But if you're looking at your screen, this is the video here.
Yeah, I shared that.
And zoom in on it so you can see, like, this is one where when you look like from far away at a glance, it looks like maybe there's like a 6 finger thing going on. But when you really zoom into it, it's like, it's literally just a crease in the palm. I'm looking at my own palm. You get this little puff of fat there. And in a low resolution video like this, it can start to distort and look like something else. People went absolutely insane over the weekend. Now, the video showing Netanyahu getting coffee was also just absolutely mahusive. So this got dubbed Coffeegate over the weekend, with a bunch of supposed smoking gun video zoom-ins showing one aspect or another being obviously, quote unquote, AI generated. Again, some of it, the takedown video, the smoking gun video, is faked. And so you get all of this stuff going on where if you're just looking at the takedown videos, the smoking gun videos, some of which are AI generated, many are zoomed in past the point of intelligibility, that you could easily walk away with the conclusion that this is all AI generated. But if you go back to the original source videos, because I'll admit, I flip-flopped this weekend. When I saw the Pocket video, it's so funny talking about this stuff. Like, if you guys weren't online this weekend, you really did miss a treat, which I'm going to get to in a second, because for me, this is the bigger story. But sticking with the sort of what happened with Coffeegate. So he puts his hand in his pocket. Now, I didn't notice it in the full video. So I'd seen the full video, but now I'm watching all the smoking gun videos, and I see this one smoking gun video of his pocket seeming to violate the laws of physics. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, snap, like, this is 100% fake. Like, oh my God, he really is dead. I was like, holy shit, I can't believe it. And then I was like, hold on. Go back, watch the original video again. It's not that hard. So I went back, I watched the original video again. And if I'm honest, the way his pocket reacts when you watch the full video at normal speed was more convincing that it's not AI, because how would the AI know the momentum of his hand stops because he hits the zipper, and then he pauses because it's like, how hard is this going to be? And then he decides, oh, it's just a zipper, I'm going to push through. He pushes through, that releases the snag of the pocket, the zipper on his skin, and then it moves rapidly because tension had built up with his hand. I cannot believe I have to take time to explain this. This is so wild. We are living in a totally different dimension. Nothing is provably real anymore. And that's where all of this gets crazy. When you've got a video, it was posted on March 15th on Netanyahu's official X account, by the way, when you've got this 60-second clip of Netanyahu at a Jerusalem cafe where he's poking fun at the rumors of him dealing with, like, I'm dying to get coffee, all of that stuff, and having to point out that he's got 10 fingers, you just know that we have completely lost the plot. And so looking at all of this from that perspective of, we can't believe if his hand going into his pocket is real, if the sip that he's taking because it doesn't disturb the foam in his drink, if that's real. People are going crazy over these details. When we can't use that and the tons of subsequent videos to decide if something is real, Even if asking AI to estimate the likelihood that the video is AI generated, if none of that proves to people that this stuff is real, then we are really in trouble. And that is exactly where we're at. Whether these anomalies come from video compression, whether they come from just the coffee being bizarrely resilient in real life or from something else, we are in a period where nobody can decide on what is real. Nobody is convinced by what they see that something is real. Nobody's convinced by the fact that it comes from his own account that this is real. And because we're living in a world now where, believe me when I say, this is wartime propaganda that is being spun to confuse people, that there are reasons why Netanyahu probably doesn't even mind that much that some people think he's dead. Because if the Iranian people think he's dead and he's really not, yes, you take a morale hit on your side and you give them a bit of a boost. But if you're really still alive and are back channeling and keeping everything moving, then they're not going to focus as hard on trying to hit you. It's the same reason why I thought it was brilliant that the Iranians have promoted to supreme leader somebody who is either in a coma, missing legs, and or already dead. Because now it's like going on to strike that person, doesn't really do you any good because they're already out of commission. And so now you've sort of defanged the opposition's approach to coming and getting that person because it won't matter to what's really happening inside the country. So if he's alive, then they still have to worry about it and go after him. If he's dead and the country is still moving forward, yes, they have to manage the expectations of their own people, and that could be problematic. And if they're slowly unraveling because there's no longer a center of gravity, then you have a problem. But ultimately, the big win is that the public is just confused. The public is paying attention to all kinds of other things, and they're not paying attention to the things that really matter. What are the economic consequences of this? Are the allies coming to our defense? Who's actually winning the war? And so if you look at this from the perspective of what happened in Vietnam, so Vietnam is the first living room war, and the American public turned against it very quickly. We no longer had the appetite to prosecute the war. It all fell apart. We end up backing out, total clusterfuck. Now, this is the first social media war. And what I'm seeing is that you can confuse the public so much that they just infight and then you go do whatever the hell you want. And so that's where this is going to get wild. Like, how do we get everybody on the same page? How do we get the American people pointed in a singular direction to either be behind the war or not behind the war, or at least have an intelligent debate? But we're not having an intelligent debate based on the merits of the outcomes of our actions. We're spinning up. I even, because I knew I was going to need to report on this, was like, this has become a far bigger story than by just volume of interaction, then the economic impacts of this, or a story we're going to cover later, the fact that China is surrounding Taiwan as presumably a military drill for, hey, while the US is distracted, let's go just snatch this bitch up. It's like, nobody's paying attention to that. Like, that was measured in like the hundreds of thousands of views, whereas the stuff on a single pocket video, coffee sip video was millions of views. And so when you step back, Drew, I'm having a very hard time putting this into words, but boys and girls, there is a thing happening right now. This is a new form of entertainment. I need to come up with a name for this. It is the world affairs as bread and circus, because I can influence it the way that I could vote on American Idol. If you get what I'm saying, like, you can actually influence what part of all of this people are paying attention to. If you can write the viral tweet about the coffee gate, the pocket video, the zoom in on the cash register, you can actually sway which way people are looking. If you can write the next bot that enrages people and they just fall for the entertaining value of rage bait. Remember, people want to be rage baited. They love that shit. They love the heightened emotion. They love snatching up their phone and typing that witty reply. And this is becoming a new form of entertainment. Even I find myself, because I'm covering this stuff, because I do not find myself naturally drawn to this, because I'm covering it, I'm like, this is occupying a certain amount of my time that otherwise would have gone to insert thing that I would have done instead of this. And so when you take a populace that is desperate for distraction and you give them like real life geopolitical warfare as video game, it's not quite right, but it's getting close. You interact with it, you influence it. If you say it in just the right way, your account blows up. It is wild.
To that point, there was that TikToker that was giving out coordinates to certain Israel targets.
Bro, do we have that clip?
So I gotta see if I can pull that up in time. But
this is the craziest shit. I'll buy you some time because this one is absolutely insane to me. So you have a US TikToker speaking directly to the Iranian regime via TikTok. It's not like he's Tucker Carlson, he's got back channels, but he's talking directly to them, showing them coordinates, saying these are the places that you should strike, like giving them ideas, satellite footage, all that stuff. All right, you have to watch this. This is fucking wild. And I want to know what you guys think about how should we treat this?
Iran, all we need is a few missiles and we can wipe out the entire Israeli electrical grid. This is the Rotenberg power station. It's coal-powered in Ashkelon, Israel. Here's the largest solar plant in the entire country, Ashkelon Power Station. They removed this from the maps, but this is the power station that generates electricity for Tel Aviv.
It's not like Iran doesn't have this.
Ashkelon brains petroleum and oil to Israel. All we need is one little drone, it'll go kaboom. By the way, if you're curious about
all right, part of the reason that like talking about Kaizen, my video game, is so meaningful is you end up getting feedback from people, and it does will influence your thinking. It's not typical that you go, oh, that's a great idea, I'm just going to deploy that as is because people don't have enough context, but it does give you ideas, chains of thought that you might not have otherwise been thinking about. And so there is no doubt, and he may not be the guy, but there are people out there putting out information that will be beneficial on both sides of the equation. Iranians giving us information that we will end up using for nothing else other than propaganda, and then vice versa. So even just doing this, I know that the Iranian state media has been replaying some of our biggest influencers saying, see, look, these guys don't even like what's going on. Everybody's with us. Everybody's on our side, dear Iran. And all of this stuff matters. This is why when a country takes over another country, the first thing they do is they go after the media. When a dictator comes to power, the first thing he does is take over the media. The great irony of Bassem Youssef, who wrote a book called Revolution for Dummies, he was a big part. Like, if people don't know his backstory, he was a big part of the media resistance to the regime in Egypt. And it was very interesting watching him go through that, only to now feel more like a propagandist than he ever did. It's really wild. Anyway, I'm sure he hates that summary, but nonetheless, is what it feels like to me. So all of this stuff matters a lot. Media matters a lot. People being able to say what they think matters a lot. But damn, when you've got somebody going online to try to map out for the enemy what they should be doing, I will just tell you, if the war escalates, shit like that will not be tolerated. Boys and girls, say what you want about free speech, and I walk right up to the line of being a free speech absolutist. And even I get that, like, damn, there's just things that you don't say and do during wartime. There are consequences to this shit. I'm going to be talking more about this when we get onto Cuba. But kids, like, these things have real life consequences. Yep. And they are not like a long weekend of, oh, that sucked. Cuba has been struggling since the 60s, bro. In the late 1950s, they were murdering it, and like economically, just an absolute powerhouse. And now I'll walk you through it, but damn, like, this is wild. The Iranians slaughtered just recently 30,000+ of their own citizens. Think how we lost our minds that ICE killed two people. 30,000. 30,000. Okay. That is insane. So yeah, I'm just shocked. I get people not being for the US moving on Iran. If you're like, US never should have moved on Iran, hey, totally get it. I think there's an extraordinarily valid point to be made there. That is a debate well worth having. Saying that we should be going to bat for the Iranian regime, that shit is wild. That's like somebody's completely unhinged from reality. If you're in the US and you want to see their regime be successful, yo, That's crazy.
This kind of cues up Tucker Carlson because allegedly, and I found this thinking I was getting trolled. Tucker says the CIA has been reading his texts in order to frame him for a crime. There's speculation that he's tied to Iran as well. There's speculation that Trump used him to get, they used him as a sleeper cell to back channel things to Iran that Trump then used in order to strike the supreme leader. So there's a lot going on with just this media geopolitics as content versus, to your point, real world implications. If Tucker really was back channeling to Iran that led to the death of the supreme leader, you're not just talking on a podcast anymore. You're impacting policy on a global level.
And it's my understanding, this is very early. Yeah. I will update my mental model as life tells me to. But the way I'm looking at this, Tucker is basically telling on himself, saying that his texts with the Iranian IRGC officials were being read by the CIA. What are you doing texting known terrorists? This is crazy. Now, while he says this is protected free speech, and look, maybe when we see the text, it was. But this may not be the position the DOJ takes, as the IRGC are a designated terrorist organization. Bro. Now, again, the devil will be in the details of what was actually said, but the Foreign Agents Registration Act was written in 1938 to stop Nazi propagandists from operating inside the United States. That sounds familiar. The CIA may now be using that against Tucker for texting people in Iran. Now, so far, it's just Tucker saying that they may come after him. I want to be very clear. No charges have been filed. The CIA and the DOJ haven't even confirmed anything yet. So what Tucker himself is confirming is that the CIA read his private text messages he exchanged with Iranian contacts before Operation Epic Fury launched back on February 28th. Now, he is saying that basically he was talking to them because he's a journalist. That's what journalists do. You source this information. I can't remember if he said it himself or somebody else was pointing this out, but that he may have been basically trying to de-escalate this. Now, there is going to be a very fine line between Tucker is talking to them and like, hey, I hope calmer heads prevail, and actually giving them information about the U.S.'s posture, telling them how to play the situation, which, ooh, buddy, when you are a journalist, if you are giving that kind of information, now you've got yourself at least in the position, a very dangerous position. How it ends up getting read will be debated endlessly. That is for sure. But we'll see if they ultimately do move on a criminal indictment from the DOJ on Tucker. We don't know yet. But Tucker's saying that he found out that all of this was going on when a reporter called him who already knew what the text messages said. And then his response was to post a video on X saying he doubts that this is even going to become a case because he didn't say anything this crazy. And again, we're going to see. But man, given the stuff that came out in the Dominion lawsuit, I don't know. Tucker has not taken 50 Cent's advice, which, by the way, as just a gentle reminder to everybody out there doing dodgy shit, as 50 Cent said, I try not to say nothing the DA might want to play in court. What is with you guys? This is crazy town. Man, boys and girls, you if you're going to do dodgy shit, you got to be way more careful. This is just nuts. But yeah, be very careful. Now, Tucker said you should know what your government is doing. And in all honesty, I completely agree with him. And we are about to hit a period of very distressing friction, as if this war drags on and it elevates in severity, then our government is going to clamp down on what we're allowed to talk about. This happens all the time, all throughout history. And as we have become a censorious society, actively, people want it. I've seen people on the left call for censorship. And I mean, the censorship industrial complex is largely a left-leaning organization that we saw go absolutely just berserk during COVID. But then I saw the right screaming for censorship not too long ago. It was a few months ago. And I was like, what is happening right now? So yeah, I don't trust anybody to, at the political level, stand up for freedom of speech. So I guess it's going to be up to us, the populace. But boys and girls, do know that in wartime, these kinds of things are going to change. So just keep that in mind. Now, the reaction to all of this tells you more about where America is right now than the story itself. This is my whole vibe over the weekend with Watching the Bibi Netanyahu's alive or dead thing, I was like, this isn't really about him being alive or dead. This is about the volume and velocity of information and how it's going to be weaponized against us. And then this isn't really whether Tucker's texts are being read by the CIA. This is about how the right is really tearing itself apart right now. On the one side, you've got people calling Tucker a traitor. Ted Cruz called him the single most dangerous demagogue in this country. Laura Loomer said that she personally referred him to the FBI. And their argument, people like that, their argument is pretty simple. You don't have to lobby against an American military strike by talking directly to the enemy. So you can do it, but that's not the way. That's not journalism. On the other side, people are calling this the most dangerous press freedom case in a generation. Candace Owens said something to the effect of, and this is a paraphrase, but it's pretty close, if they arrest Tucker, we ride at dawn. Pretty close to a direct quote. The argument there is equally simple. Journalists talk to everyone, including adversaries. That's the job. And the moment the government can charge a reporter for sourcing info is the moment the First Amendment means nothing in wartime. And another angle on everything that has shaken down with Tucker is that Trump actually knew this was going on with Tucker, as would actually make sense if they had been intercepting his messages for a while. Some people, by the way, think that they may have just been intercepting the messages because they were watching the known terrorist, and Tucker just happened to come in the chat, and they were like, okay, well, here we go. Now we've got information on him, which they would obviously feed to Trump. And then Trump, in the weeks leading up to the Operation Epic Fury, brought Tucker into his office 3 times, and that he knew he was communicating with Iranian officials, and that he was basically feeding him misinformation. Now, everything is hearsay for now. We'll have to wait and see how all of this plays out. But prevailing wisdom would be to allow a lot of latitude to the press. That would certainly be the thing that I beg the DOJ to do. Boys and girls, you have to be very careful here. And look, I get it. If he was really doing something that, if you believe, if we show what he said to Iranian officials, to the American people, like if we show the American people that they're going to be unanimous in their, or close to it, in their condemnation, in their sense that this really is a guy offering aid to the enemy, okay, fine, pursue it. But yo, be careful, man. Be careful, because you tread on freedom of speech at your peril. That is exactly how you become the monster that you're trying to stop. So yeah, warnings.
But people forget, Tucker's the same guy that went to Russia to sit down with Putin. He was talking about how the grocery stores were stocked and the streets were clean and things like that. So I think if there's anybody that would have talked to a supreme leader or somebody close to high ranking in Iran that was an American journalist, it would be Tucker.
Tucker is saying he did it. Like, Tucker's not denying. I have been talking to them. He's painting it as, bro, we should not be going into this war. I'm trying to de-escalate, this is me mind reading a little bit, but me doing what I can to try to stop us from ending up in this situation. I'm not trying to provide aid to them, but I don't think that America should be in that war. And as we march closer to that, yeah, I'm going to try to back us away from the brink. I'm in talking to the president directly, lobbying him not to do it. I'm being consistent. This is me just speculating. I am being consistent in the messaging that I'm saying to the president, that I'm saying to them. Nobody is getting like, classified information or anything like that. I don't want to see this war happen. I don't think this war is good for America. And therefore, we should want every person that has a direct connection with these guys to be saying the same thing. Like, what kind of maniac doesn't want to see this de-escalated? And if that's what the communications back up, I'm going to be like, yeah, like, you should be able to say that. So it's going to come down to, what did he actually say? And if he was relaying information that the president said to him in a private meeting, even if it's not classified information, damn,
bad look.
That's bad. At wartime, like, bro. So we'll see. We got to let the details flow in.
Meanwhile, while the U.S. is on the strait asking for help from its allies, there's been 10 denials so far. Britain has said, we might help you with the strait, but we're not getting into the war. Trump has definitely alienated a lot of the allies. I know we were talking about Trump playing 4D chess. It seems like maybe he got his pawn and his rook confused or something like that. But
well, let's keep in mind, just because you're playing 4D chess doesn't mean you're winning at 4D chess. Especially not if the real game is 16D chess.
Yeah.
and you're only playing 4D. So, oh God, every life is so complicated, Drew. Like just talking about economies is complicated. Now layer on some human pettiness and then blow some people up. Now it's like all bets are off. You never know where this is all going to go. Everyone's heard the famous Mike Tyson quote, everybody's got a plan till they get punched in the face. There's the military equivalent. No strategy survives first contact with the enemy. It's like the enemy gets a vote. All these things get oft repeated because they are so true. So yeah, whatever plan we had going into this was guaranteed to fall apart as we, went down the road. Now the question still remains, is Trump going to be able to pull this off? And I know everybody wants to say that, their side is just definitive. It's obvious. He's 100% going to win or he's 100% going to lose. I don't think that's true. I don't think we have the evidence to back up any of that. And anybody that thinks that the U.S. can't apply massive leverage to a lot of countries, by the way. So take China. China gets 20% of its oil from Iran and Venezuela combined. And if the U.S. is able to control that, dude, that's like a real blow. They're already releasing their strategic reserves. They've already got people like lining up for hours to get gas. And that was at like day 10 of the war. So you can expect that to only get worse as things go on. And so I think that it's super disingenuous for people to think that Xi's like, it doesn't really matter what happens. He cares. Now, he's not in some super weak position. First of all, they're transitioning to solar power faster than any country ever in human history. So if anybody really wants to get over to solar, take a page out of China's playbook. They are going ham. So they've got that diversification strategy, but also they're a gigantic military. They're a gigantic economy. So these are not the people that you want to take lightly, but at the same time, the U.S. is a gigantic economy. The U.S. has a far more capable military even than the Chinese. So it's like, boys and girls, the U.S. has a lot of cards that it still has left to play. It just doesn't mean that they're going to win. So you've got all kinds of things, including asymmetrical warfare. Drones are still getting through. Everybody adapts. Like, think about Iran as the Ukraine, the U.S. as Russia, and nobody thought that Ukraine, least of all Russia, was going to be able to stand toe-to-toe for 3 or 4 years, which is exactly what's happened. So if Iran has the will to continue to fight and the U.S. checks itself from just obliterating all of their infrastructure, then this could go on for a very, very, very long time. And the warfare will adapt. We've already got drones, the U.S. as well, and we've already got robots. So it's like, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but let's say the war drags on for a couple years. Imagine how much money will go to, well, I said I wouldn't put troops on the ground. I'm not going to. I'm going to put robots on the ground carrying guns. So the future of warfare looks nothing like the past. This is this is largely going to play out in cyber capabilities. You've already got Iran striking people from a cyber perspective. They've warned American companies, we're coming after you with cyber warfare. We're going to hit American companies in the Gulf region. So there's still a lot of leverage on both sides, and how this will play out, if it drags out, could get very, very ugly and very, very protracted. And I'll just set here for now that not only will they go after the oil infrastructure, they'll go after desalination plants. And now you've got a humanitarian crisis. So yeah, be careful. And obviously with the massive instability that we're seeing in the world, you've got China now doing what appear to be dress rehearsals of an invasion of Taiwan, which is wild. But you also have just the rising tensions across Russia, Ukraine that could spill over. And so while all of this is going on, do you end up having a Europe that needs the US to be an ally, only to have alienated the US because the US alienated them first with all of the big talk and being a dickhead bully? So it is, new alliances will form because economic necessities will make it such, but this is a super destabilizing time.
Yeah. You brought up the Taiwan move. I think this is big, and this is largely underreported, but Taiwan reports a large-scale Chinese military aircraft present near the island.
Yeah.
somebody broke this down. There's 26 warplanes operating nearby in the region. 16 has crossed the air defense zone, which is basically like the line in the sand. And there's 7 Navy ships near the island now.
Bro.
So it's one of those things. The U.S. is on an island in the Strait. It's struggling to fight that war. Maybe this is the time Xi Jinping swipes in and grabs the island back and reunifies.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he said he was going to do it by 2027. So it's hard to know if he would really make this move while he's in a hard position with the oil. However, that certainly doesn't take it off the table because they have pretty large reserves. So he might think, nah, we'll be fine. Or he might be like, okay, this is the perfect time for the dress rehearsal. I still don't plan to move until 2027, but let me get all my ducks in a row. Let me run sorties and figure out exactly what this looks like. And then when we're ready, oil's back moving apace, or we've transitioned even more off to solar so that we can save all of our oil for military grade equipment. Then we make our move. Yeah. That is where this starts to get scary. It's just the second and third order consequences, fourth order, fifth order consequences that will be obvious to historians are going to be very hard for us to pinpoint. Mm-hmm. But when you think about, like, in moments of chaos, people that already had an agenda in their mind go, well, nobody's looking. And so now's the perfect time. And just the world is in absolute, okay, let me not say anything hyperbolic. The world right now is truly destabilized. And the reason I don't want people to, I will for sure use hyperbolic speech very often because it is the way that my mind works. But in terms of, like, okay, making sure that we lay ground posts to say, okay, what's the really grounded thing at this moment? Relationships between countries are destabilized. Energy markets are destabilized. Mm-hmm. We're suddenly realizing that there are a lot of people in the Gulf that have very delicate infrastructure for oil, which essentially controls the global economy, and desalinization. So this is a desert, and their population has only been able to expand as much as it's been able to expand because of their ability to desalinate ocean water. Mm-hmm. And if that goes away, and it's only a few missile strikes away from going away, then you could see a humanitarian crisis across the Gulf, which would then further disrupt whatever oil they might otherwise be able to get out of the country. And so you put all of that together, you've got the historic relationship between the US and Europe breaking apart while Russia and Ukraine are fighting. Now, it's hard to know what reports are true. Some people are saying that Ukraine is actually now starting to push Russia back. I don't know if that's actually accurate, but it could be. And so if it is, great. And if they're able to sort of reestablish either all or the vast majority of their territory, write it off and say, okay, cool, here we're willing to exit ramp, awesome. But if not, and Russia's now pushing in, and by the way, 2 more countries have joined NATO that border with Russia. So the very thing that they said they were pushing back against, they're moving in the wrong direction. So they're not exactly going to be sanguine about all of this. Mm-hmm. So you've got Europe is destabilized and isolated from the largest military, largest economy in the world, while having spent decade after decade after decade not investing in their own security and having to do that. You've got the German chancellor going to China, coming back and going, oh shit, like we can't compete with that. We become fucking lazy. And we're no longer the Germany that people have in their mind that can, like, mass produce like these highly technical, works of art. That's just not who we are anymore. And so you've got that. And then you've got the Muslim immigration problem coming into Europe, which is destabilizing their cultures. Dude, it is just, Europe is in a very precarious place. Not catastrophe, it's not calamity, but it's like, it's not the position you would want to be in with the Russia-Ukraine war still simmering. Yeah. Now, if that settles, cool, then they're in a much more tenable position. Then obviously you've got ascendant China, declining US, the US just doing everything it can to snap itself in half with a K-shaped economy. And despite my best efforts so far, and look, maybe it plays out just over time, but so far, Drew, I've not been able to convince the world that economies run on physics. And you violate the laws of physics and very knowable consequences play out. Mm-hmm. And because neither myself nor a myriad of other people banging the same drum have been able to convince people, it really does feel like only pain is going to break people of that. Yeah. But that pain tends to come in 80 to 100 year time frames. So this is such a wild moment, man. Yeah. Such a wild moment. And that's like, I'm stopping now. I have not run out of things to say in terms of what's precarious.
Yeah, we're definitely hitting a turning point on the geopolitical level that I don't think we have in a very long time. And Peter Zeihan, during his interview, said that Trump just happens to be the president at this time where all these agreements were coming up, all these conflicts were coming to a head. He just happens to be the person in power when it came. So whether it was Kamala or whoever else was in office, this time was going to happen. Now, Trump's influence on that can't be understated. He definitely
he's such an accelerant.
Yeah.
Such an accelerant. Yeah. If you look at, the Biden administration accelerated Iran's ascension, so did the Obama administration. So those two accelerated things for sure in terms of Iran developing their weapons programs, Iran being able to fund their proxies, Iran being able to heighten tensions with Israel, all of that. But then Trump accelerated massively this global reorganization of allies right at like this already sort of crazy time. And it's one of those where, okay, let's be a historian. It all works. Trump pulls it off. It's messy, but Trump pulls it off. U.S. is in a stronger position for at least another generation. We reorganize allyships. We're in a better spot from an onshoring of critical manufacturing. We control our own supply chains. The world largely decouples, but we're able to stabilize. America's thriving. K-shaped economy starts collapsing. We get, meaning bringing people back to the middle. Yay, right? Okay, cool. Then we look back at this moment. We go, hey, he took advantage. He was the one personality that could take advantage of this. And man, America's just lucky that we had a transformational president like Polk, who you look at, you're squeamish, you don't like the things that he did, but you can't deny that he's made America stronger. Now, let's look back at this moment, and everything collapsed, and it was terrible. It was 4D chess when you needed to play 16D chess. And we realized this was just absolute madness. He destabilized everything and was not able to put it back together. Historians will look back on this and go, you have to accept that you had a singular figure that drove the erosion of America at 10x the speed. Now, America, I'll give the economic Peter Zeihan equivalent of this moment was going to happen economically. America was going to decline. What we were doing economically could last no more than 10 years, barring some massive change.
Deficit spending, running up the budget, not balanced.
Yeah. Like you can only drive a K-shaped economy so far before you either have revolution or bankruptcy, both of which devastate the country. So that moment was going to happen, but Trump accelerated all of that and collapsed a 10-year timeline down into 2 years. So that would be this all goes poorly, but we're looking back with the historical context. Again, I don't know which of those is true. This is going to have to play out in time, and anybody that bangs on the table and tells you that they know that they are correct, this is exactly, to me, like Michael Burry, where Michael Burry banged on the table, tried to tell everybody what was going on in 2008. Nobody listened, and he made an absolute staggering fortune, only to then, 15 years later, say, I'm backing out, I'm liquidating my my investment business because I no longer understand the economy. And so that's at least having the humility to admit that it's not like, oh, I just always get things right. It's that every now and then somebody sees something and they end up being right. And if you read them as they are then going to be perpetually right, you will be eternally confused. So the best you can do is try to make contact with cause and effect. So we'll see what happens.
Nice. All right. We got some super chats.
Yes. First up from Marussia Dart, 316. Been reading The Great Taking and Hijacking Bitcoin. Scary stuff. All securities being turned into IOUs. Epstein apparently tried buying out the core Bitcoin devs as well as Tether, which backs Rumble. Deep dive worthy?
That's interesting. That might be deep dive worthy. Yeah, I'm going to. Ryan, can you send me like a Slack message on that?
Yes, I can.
That one is worth looking at. Thank you, Marussia. Much appreciated.
Next up is from Patrick Wright. Yeah, Patrick W. Wrightson, 2072, and it's 2 super chats, so I'm going to read them both.
Yeah, let's go.
Watching Peter Zeihan's video from this morning, it occurs to me, this was not his thesis, mind you, that the Strait of Hormuz is controlled by whoever started the conflict, which if you think about it, has interesting strategic implications. Hence, if I'm the United States and I have other ways to procure crude supply similar to the strategic use of the tariffs, the overall restriction of the strait puts pressure on those who rely desperately in terms of energy.
Yeah, the U.S. is certainly not in the dire strait from a direct I need oil perspective that like Asia is. That is super gnarly. However, the U.S. does have pressure from the global world that is going to say, hey, you're breaking the global economy and we're not going to put up with this. Now, he could stand in defiance of basically everybody, but egads, I don't advise that. So we'll see how that plays out. But I don't think that it's as simple as whoever moves first controls the strait. If Peter actually said that, that is not a logical statement, because this is where asymmetrical warfare is going to come to your aid. You only have to drone bomb a couple ships before the insurance companies, as they already have, go, yeah, we're not going to cover this. Plus, as Iran is doing right now, you make this a negotiating thing and you say any country that boots U.S. military bases, U.S. personnel and embassies out of their country, you get a free pass. And it only takes so long when your country is getting energy destitute before you go, yeah, we're going to do exactly that. So that's where it's like, what is Trump going to do at that point? He would have to offer them something where it's like, you want this thing from the U.S. more than you want to get those ships through the strait. Now, if the U.S. is able to produce enough energy that we can export to those countries, if we can broker short-term deals with Russia, which is already happening, then we could. But man, then you change the balance of the war in Russia-Ukraine. When you do that, which is exactly the kind of thing that's going to happen right now, this stuff is so intertwined. You move one piece on the chessboard and it just changes the entire dynamic. So yeah.
Last super chat from Nathan Dye 5782. I made an AI system that MacroHard, I'm assuming Microsoft, is trying to make.
MacroHard is Elon Musk.
Oh,
company.
actually?
It's trolling Microsoft.
Of course he'd name it. Yeah. No one will take a meeting for proof. So I solved the BSD Millennium Prize. 2 years to verify.
Wait. Start this over again.
Okay. I made an AI system that MacroHard is trying to make. No one will take a meeting for proof. So I solved the BSD Millennium Prize. 2 years to verify. Please help. I'm building and delivering, but getting nowhere.
That's really interesting. So here's the bad news. I don't know enough to know if you're a crackpot or a super genius that really can't get people's attention, which unfortunately really does happen. God, I'm not going to be able to help you because I won't know. So here's the question. Who out there understands this well enough to go through it? You've got to find that person. So while I appreciate very much that you're reaching out in the hopes that I can help you, but I would need to be able to ascertain whether you're accurate or not. And I don't even know what the BSD Millennial Prize is.
I looked that up. The BSD conjecture is one of the 7 problems selected by Clay Mathematics Institute in 2000, offering a $1 million prize for a correct proof.
Okay, so here's what I would do if I were you. So I would take the Eric Weinstein approach. So Eric understood that he was doing things in mathematics and physics that other people were not doing, that he really thought he had something. Not only would nobody pay attention to him, but they were systematically trying to make him like a pariah, which is crazy to me, but nonetheless true. And he started his own podcast, started going on every other podcast that he could get. But you have to add value. Like you've got to be able to walk people through why you're right. And so you live in an era where it is not enough to be right. You have to be able to communicate that you are right. And so while it may take you a year or two, I would spin up that podcast. And if you really understand something that other people don't understand, you will build an audience. It's just a question of whether you have the discipline to do that. So with that, I will say I highly encourage you to do that. Trust me, as somebody that had to do it, starting from flat foot, having exactly 0 followers, I know what this game is like. So, yeah.
And reminder, if you haven't, make sure you guys smash that like button. Let's jump over to Cuba.
By the way, smash that like button. I need more conviction on that one.
Smash that like button.
Well said. Well said.
Headed over to Cuba, it seems that there's been 8 consecutive nights of protests. There's been unrest rising in the streets. And an unlikely visitor is heading over there. The Democratic Socialists of America are getting
Are they
around
unlikely? Are they exactly who you expect to head over to Cuba? Bro, this one, as you might imagine, this one has my panties in a bunch, as my mom would say.
You know, they have been without food. They have been without water. So humanitarian aid, I think, is nice. So I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt before I'm going
Think about how many humanitarian crises there are in the world. And the one that they're going to support is the one run by a communist dictatorship.
It is the one that we're directly causing, though. So that's
we, Drew?
We cut them off.
Yes. So in the latest round of escalations, this acute thing, that is true. And I'm curious. So I'm about to do my whole spiel on this. And I would like to know, before I do my whole spiel.
I have a communist
not quite, but do you actually presume that these guys just somehow weren't aware of all the other humanitarian crises that have happened and therefore did not touch those? Or do you see them trying to campaign the American people that the DSA are the good guys and American capitalism writ large are the bad guys, and they want to go help the good guys in Cuba who are the communists? Because I'm about to just I'm essentially just going to walk through a bunch of facts, and then people can decide if that sounds good or bad.
To your point, yes, I think that this is a way that they can rally the American people to get more support to say, hey, Trump and Cuba are beefing right now. Trump is cutting Cuba off. We're going to help Cuba, and we're going to be anti-Trump.
Yes.
And as the left has been, that's been their campaign strategy for the last 10 years. So
perfect.
I'm aligned with that.
So nothing crazy there. The DSA is headed to Cuba right now, but they are going to Cuba to defend a regime that is absolutely drenched in humanitarian abuses. Okay. And now that the DSA is doing this, can we please stop pretending that these guys aren't communists? It is so self-evident what these guys want. And somehow, some way, people are watching what Mamdani's doing and not having every alarm bell in their head go off. Now, I'm not saying that Mamdani is going to Cuba, though. I'm going to poke some fun at the man while we go, because he is the face of the DSA. So you will forgive me for not acting like I can't see that. Now, as a quick note, Freedom House classifies Cuba as not free and notes that Cuba is the only country in the Americas that consistently makes its list of the worst of the worst, the world's most repressive societies. Okay, that's who they're going to defend. Now, they got that title for widespread abuses of political rights and civil liberties. Okay, that's who they're going to help and defend. Consider who they stand up for the next time that you are at the ballot box. Now, remember, repression is required when you want to take people's things, as socialists and communists must do. I've said this many times, and I will keep banging this drum. This is how the human mind works. People work hard for the things that they do. And when the government tells them that you ought not be doing that thing, you should be doing this thing, or you should be giving me the results of the proceeds from your labor, and I will decide how to give them, eventually somebody says no. And what I want each and every one of you to answer is, what do you do when the farmer says, I don't want to plant corn, I want to plant this other thing? Do you take a gun out and tell them that they're going to make sugar? Because that's what the fuck Cuba did. We'll get to that in a minute. The DSA's trip is part of a broader international initiative called the Nostra America Convoy. It's organized primarily by Progressive International, Code Pink, and allied groups. The convoy is set to converge in Havana on March 21st, and the DSA's co-chairs, Megan Romer and Ashik Sadiq, have formally endorsed the mission. Now, please keep in mind, Castro once bragged that Cuba had 20,000 political prisoners, okay? I'll be up in arms if they inappropriately detain Tucker Carlson, who I think is largely out of his mind, but nonetheless, that'd be a real problem. But bragging about 20,000 is some wild shit. They have, this is real. They have drained prisoners of their blood, which they then sold before executing them. So they drained, it was like 7 liters or something. They drain them to the point of paralysis and then shoot them. Now, they often do that just days after arrest with little more than a show trial. And as of September of 2024, the Cuban Institute for Freedom of Expression and Press registered 99 arbitrary detentions of journalists and press workers in a single year, along with 179 aggressive actions and threats, 126 physical assaults, and 36 individuals imprisoned or under house arrest specifically for exercising freedom of expression. The Cuban regime not only targets political prisoners, they prey on their family members as well. Following the July 2021 protests, 90 media workers fled the country in 2022 alone, by the way, due to fear of criminalization and imprisonment, severely crippling Cuba's independent press. And they're known for executing minors who cause problems for the regime. And a 2022 report submitted to the UN Committee Against Torture by the NGO Cuban Prisoners Defenders documented patterns of torture and mistreatment. The Cuban government has operated forced labor camps filled to the brim with prisoners convicted of hateful crimes such as, get ready for it, being gay, a Jehovah's Witness, a Seventh-day Adventist, a Catholic priest, a Protestant minister, or a, God forbid, intellectual or farmer. And it's not like it was one of each of those categories. It was bunches of people just for being in that category. Anybody who resisted collectivization would get snatched up. Cuba has also been credibly accused of kidnapping thousands of young people who were taken from their homes, schools, religious seminaries, you name it, never formally charged, never tried, but imprisoned nonetheless. Let's look at Cuba before the Communist Revolution. Pre-revolutionary Cuba, they weren't a basket case waiting to be rescued by Mamdani and Greta. It was one of the most developed economies in Latin America. Before the revolution, Cuba was one of the richest of the Spanish-speaking societies. In 1958, they had a higher GDP per capita, PPP adjusted, than Ireland or Austria, and almost double that of Spain and Japan. Despite only 6.5 million inhabitants, Cuba was the 29th largest economy in the world. Then came the revolution. What happened, you ask? The productive class fled, and the economy collapsed within 4 years. When Castro came up with the brilliant idea to force the country to focus on sugar production to revive the economy. Now, when he did that, not only did it not work, it collapsed most other major industries in the country because everyone had been forced at the end of a fucking gun to focus on sugar. That's what you have to do when you're not relying on market forces. You, the supposed genius running the country, decides, hey, I know, because our sugar industry used to be the best thing ever, we're just going to force everybody to focus on that. And it absolutely cratered the country to the point where Cuba was forced to turn to Russia for charity. And they have been stuck ever since then in a cycle of international dependency. And people look at moments like this and they say, well, fuck America for putting a blockade around these guys. Well, guess what? For 60, so you have 40, 30, so you've got almost 70 years, 65-ish years of that country being run by a communist dictatorship, and they drove it into the fucking ground. So it started as a thriving nation, and after communism, because economies work on physics, they ended up destroying the country. And so I don't want to hear a tale about America has come in and fucked these guys up. They did that to themselves because these ideas don't work when you force humans to do things they know better of. This is exactly what Mao did to his people. He forced them to plant the same crops all across China at the same time and killed anybody who said that was a bad idea. And guess what? It starved people to death because it's not how crops work. So looking at Cuba, we should want them to discover the free market the way that China discovered the free market post-Mao. I'm not saying they have to become democratic. If that's not what they want, fine. But they need to discover an economic principle that actually works. And the one that they're running now does not.
There is a running narrative in socialist circles that how capitalism has reigned supreme is that when there is a country anywhere that becomes independent and wants to break off of the traditional capitalist structure, they get embargoed, they get sanctioned, they get tariff, they get trade restrictions.
Let me say it a different way. Whenever a country decides that they're going to do that, they so weaken themselves that they end up getting slapped around by everybody around them. Yes, that is true.
But I would go the other way because I was trying to build up like first principles type thing. Like for a country to thrive, it needs trade partners. Could we start there? Do you think trade is necessary for a country to thrive?
If the country can't sustain itself, it is physics necessary. Yes.
So do you think that countries can sustain themselves without trade partners?
There are some. You won't have the lifestyle that you have in a globalized world, which is far better for everybody. It just doesn't last forever. But in a world where everybody was peaceful and you could just trade across borders, it would be ideal for sure.
Yeah. Copy. So a lot of times the downfall of the country is then put on the backs of the system and not on the backs of the trade restrictions that then would happen. So that's what I think gives a lot of these far left communist socialist policies validity, is because every country that they have their downfall, they switch over to a different economic system. All the capitalist countries ice them out, and then they just kind of spiral down below.
This is where we have to talk about Singapore. Singapore gets essentially booted out of their own country, and they're like, uh-oh, what are we going to do? He goes to the communists, I'm not joking, effectively grabs them by the lapel and is like, if you fuck with what I'm about to do, I will kill every one of you. And then proceeds to go, okay, listen, we're going to build an economic structure that actually fucking works, and you guys are all going to be in on it. And so I, the person giving birth to this country as the leader, my house is going to be just like your house, but I want my house to be fucking dope. And so we're all going to build this shit. You guys aren't going to fuck me up, and I'm not going to isolate myself in a palace and be away from you. And we're going to build this thing from the ground fucking up. And now Singapore is the place, whatever, 80 years later, that the entire world goes to for capital. Like, if you want to know where will Tom go check out if the US fucking continues apace towards socialism, communism, my first stop is fucking Singapore. So it has Chinese vulnerabilities. That's the only thing that scares me, is full disclosure. But that is, when you think about somebody that literally built a country out of the fucking marsh, and he did it. There is an exact quote of what he said to the communists. It isn't, I'm going to fucking kill every one of you. But it was something so aggressive and so violent that it was like, whoa, this guy does not fucking play around. So you have to understand how, if you're being betrayed by, at that time, literally their country kicked them out and said, you guys can't be a part of this. And I forget what the thing was that made them all lump up. But anyway, they were like, you're not a part of this. And he understood, we're on our own. No one is coming to save us. Oh my God, I'll give you another example. Booker T. Washington. Okay, shit. We're around a bunch of people that want to kill us. We were just their slaves. We just got freed. They all want us dead. What the fuck did we do? He was like, I'm going to teach people how to build bricks, how to make bricks, man, how to make bricks. Now, as you can imagine, they did not have a whole lot of friendly trading partners. So he's got to now hustle that up. He's got to figure out, I'm going to build this school, but I'm going to do it by teaching these guys how to be reliant on only themselves. They get so good at making bricks that they end up exporting. It was to surrounding people in the South. But nonetheless, you can think of them as like their own little startup country and having to make a product so high quality that they could export. So the way that you deal, even if the world is tyrannical, the way that you deal with the world is go, I'm going to motivate and inspire. I'm going to fucking get rid of a K-shaped economy, not by telling people that they can't succeed, not by telling people that they can't pull away. I'm going to get rid of the K-shaped economy by making sure people understand, if you fucking bust ass and you do a thing that matters to this group, you're going to get paid. And so then if somebody doesn't bust ass and they don't contribute to the group, they can get the fuck out. Now you don't get a K-shaped economy because everybody's going hard and they're trying to build something that matters, and you focus on the thing that nobody can take away from you. And so if people are like, you can't have a school, fuck you. And you go, no, I'm going to teach these guys how to make bricks, dude. This is one of the most inspiring stories ever in human history. And somehow it gets shit on. I just can't fucking see that. That's crazy to me. So that is, Cuba should have been like, all right, fuck them. Like, we're going to really build this fucking industry, but we're going to do one thing. We're going to be honest about what people are like. And we're going to understand intelligence is not evenly distributed. Work, ethic is not evenly distributed. And so we're going to reward the people that fucking murder it. We're going to make sure that they can rise. And any fuckwit that doesn't contribute, they get little to nothing. Fuck those kids. They get like extreme social pressure to contribute or get out, and we are going to get strong. And in times of like desperation, struggle, war, whatever, dude, you better find in you that real ability to buckle down and get all Sparta on that shit, because you're going to have to find a way to defend yourselves, to be strong, to get your economy, your supply chain, all of that in order so that nobody can fuck with you. But we've got this weird fucking globalized mentality of like, we're owed everything. That is not how the world works. And so every time these countries decide to act like somebody's just going to hand them some shit, that people are going to roll up on a flotilla, and that they don't have to go, I accept that I have to motivate my people, that my people are motivated by outperforming and getting their just rewards for that, that there will be inequality. And our goal is to make sure that there's no intolerable inequality, which has to be engineered into the system. You don't end up with intolerable inequality unless you fuck up your system, okay? Central banks, debt, money printing, a government that can spend into the red. That is how you engineer a system designed to steal from the people who don't understand economics, which is fucking evil as far as I'm concerned. One up. There it is.
like you're going there. And then I got another thing. I'm hitting you with a bunch of things because as you're talking, you know, there's always that one person in the chat like, please. Yeah, but what about?
Yes.
So there's a couple what aboutism I just want to kind of strike down once for the record. Everybody who's Democrat is not marching down a long path to socialism. Everybody who's Republican is not MAGA. So I understand the DSA is a very specific sect on the left. So I'm not going to other them, stuff like that. However, the criticism here was, although Trump is more capitalist than the DSA, absolutely, and the left, we can't also act like Trump is running a free capital, a free market capitalism administration.
Yes.
There's still, Intel is a government-owned company. We have been not seizing the means of production, but owning a portion of the means of production for certain companies that we invested in. He just gave an $800 billion tax break to India. He's flipped the switch on H-2A visas, which are for migrant farm workers.
Clapped on for that.
So at the same time, it's not like we're running a pure capitalist system for us to now
not even close. You're correct.
Other people like that. Yes. So is it just because we already have the Fed, that's why it's too big for us, or can America still move closer to pure capitalism?
I'm going to put a hat on that I hope is just pure encouragement for the American people of what we need to do to reclaim this. So one, having everybody get to the point of functionally understanding the rough swag of how an economy works. And I will just give them the easy one. Inflation is theft, and you should immediately get your government to stop stealing from you. The easiest way to do that is just insist on a balanced budget. It's not exactly that, but that's a close enough swag for the conversation. So get your government to be very clear-headed about what it's going to spend money on. And then, yes, we need to acknowledge that both the left and the right spend completely irresponsibly. The problem is that the left spends irresponsibly and is excited about it and is running down that road as fast as they can. The right is saying, look, we have to do this to get reelected, and so we are going to do it, make no mistake about it. But we understand that we have to grow faster than we deficit spend. And if we don't grow faster than we deficit spend, we at least know we have a problem. And so they are trying to deregulate. They are trying to find a path to make sure that America stays technologically the innovators, the strongest economy, to grow our way out of this. Now, I would much rather see a fiscal conservative Democrat who understands the market than a fiscally irresponsible Republican who still believes in growth. So this is not me saying it's Republican or bust. I just need to get everybody behind the idea that when you're looking at a candidate, don't worry yourself at all about Republican or Democrat. Look at their level of understanding of economics. And if they have a good understanding of economics, then that's almost certainly the right way to go. Obviously, as always, we need to know more about the candidate, blah, blah, blah. But that's question number one. Do they actually understand how economies work, and are they going to move us forward? So we don't need to lump everybody into a bucket and say Democrats bad, Republicans good. That would be a blatant lie and will lead you down a garden path of death and destruction if you just blindly vote for either party. But yeah, you need to insist that your candidates show a desire for growth, a desire for capitalism, an understanding of why central banks are so dangerous. They don't have to say that they plan to get rid of it, but they need to understand why it's dangerous. They need to say how they plan to address inflation. They need to say why, they need to show that they understand why you can't deficit spend, that is the thing that creates the K-shaped economy. They need to show that a K-shaped economy is just, it's not only a terrible idea, it is morally repugnant. And so getting into all of that, again, you have to be so careful. There is natural inequality, which is not only always going to persist, it's desirable, but toxic inequality must be manufactured into the system and is ultimately the death of every empire. And so I understand that nuance creates a level of complexity that causes problems for me and everybody else, but we have to deal with it.
You set me right up with this tweet that was later on the agenda, but let's move it up. Nayara VT said, this is why you don't have healthcare, by the way. It's not trans people. It's not undocumented migrants. It's not refugees. And this is a repost of Bricks News saying the U.S. war with Iran has now costed an estimated $21 billion since the strikes began. So this kind of goes right into your thing of people think that the economy is one way because we're spending money on the war when there's underlying circumstances that have that. But I hear this a lot, that every time we need to bomb a country, we find money. But when we need universal health care, it's, I'll get back to you. Let me go check my pocketbook. Break down that difference to us and why that nuance exists.
Okay, so the fact that the U.S. is deficit spending in the war in Iran is exactly why you have a K-shaped economy, but it has nothing to do with why you don't have healthcare. Healthcare really comes down to priorities. So you could absolutely have free healthcare if that's what you want. I will tell people to really take a close look at that. It does not work out as well in other countries as you think it does, but there are systems far better than ours. But I would rather see the free market compete for it anyway. If we want free healthcare, we can absolutely have free healthcare, but it comes at the cost of something else. So it can come at the cost of a K-shaped economy, the likes of which you've never seen before, that will absolutely guarantee revolution and bloodshed. Or it can come at the cost of not doing some other things. And the very second that America goes, yeah, cool. We are no longer going to have 50% of the people in America pay no taxes. We're going to start doing a broad-based tax base like we do in the Nordic countries, which is how they pull it off. You could literally tax the billionaires to zero, and you buy about 2 years of full-fledged run rate. It's nothing. So what you have to do, you must balance the budget. Once you balance the budget, then just say, what are the things that we want for free and what are we willing to give up to get it? So if you decide that you're never going to let old people retire, you could have free healthcare. And keep the tax base the way that it is. If you do broad-based taxation, then you can have free healthcare. You give up innovation, and I don't know that we're prepared to do that. Remember, other countries have been able to do that only because of what America does for them in terms of defense. So when you spring forward 10 years, you guys know that the Nordic countries don't look the way that they look now, right? You guys do know that this is that is a raging inferno that has been keeping them warm for now, there's no doubt, but that fire burns out. And so I don't think people are being honest about that. If the US and Europe break up and they all have to do their own defense spending and they keep attracting migrants at the rate that they do now, they aren't able to sustain these policies. Just pay attention to the swing to the right in so much of Europe. They haven't done it yet, but those parties are growing in number and veracity. So yeah. 10 years from now, that I think is a very different story. So again, if you want free healthcare, we can have it. You just have to balance the budget and then decide what you're not going to pay for.
For the public healthcare, California is probably the best example where how they run it. It's no build. They check against your insurance. If you have insurance, then they charge you. If you don't, if you can't afford it, okay, they just kind of write it off like that. The public-based model example that a lot of the European countries, I'm assuming you would kind of fall in that line. But there's also...
Can I give you off the top of my head what I think we should do something like?
Oh, yeah.
This is me thinking out loud, so I'm going to probably regret this, but I like living on the edge. Any technology that does not become cheaper over time means you are being stolen from. So if the reason for that is governments inflate when they hit a 2% target, they have burned through all of the deflationary effects of innovation plus 2%. People think that it's just 0 or up. It's really not. The cost of things should be going down. When you think about like how cheap a CRT TV from like whatever 25 years ago would be to maybe 35 years ago, whatever it is, how cheap it would be. You probably pick it up for $2 or $3 at a thrift store. So it's like those kinds of technologies, if the supply chains had a reason for existing, then those things would go down. So let's say you build a hospital today with all the equipment and all that you want. You keep some amount of that today, like whatever is cutting edge in 2026, in 5 years is going to be outdated, but it was cutting edge in 2026. We were all ecstatic to have it in 2026. So let that be the thing where people are like, well, I can't afford the newest of the new yet. It will be the model that I have in like 5 years. I can't afford it yet. So, but let me get access to the stuff that in 2026 was like Bill Gates. This is the shit he was using. So I'm 5 or 10 years behind, but it's still fucking amazing technology. And then for the things that like I need that are like, no, this has got to be like the best of the best of the best. I've got cancer or whatever. That's the thing that you hold insurance for. It becomes far more rare, which means that your rates are far lower. You get most of your stuff on the cost of it is just going down and down and down because they've amortized it, right? So now eventually that technology breaks and those supply chains are going to be dead. So you're not going to replace it with the same old thing. But by then, the thing that was new, the 2030 model, now becomes the equivalent of the 2026 model. And so now you're getting that stuff, but the rich people have access to something else. And that's just the way technology works. But for some reason, we don't do that. Now, part of it is just going to be, there's only so much space in the hospitals and all of that. And I understand that. But there are plenty of ways we can 3D print things. Look, this is me speaking extemporaneously. There are for sure going to be gotchas and all that as we look at it. But people aren't even looking at this shit. They're not letting the market go to battle and come up with these like psychotically innovative ways of doing this stuff. People do not understand that regulation stops a lot of brilliant ideas from ever coming to the fore because you go to do it and then you realize, oh, I'll have to spend $25 million on legal fees before I can even spin up this company because it has to do with healthcare or whatever. Yeah. And so it's like, we've got to find a sensible way to deregulate so that we can focus on innovation. People don't even have a concept of innovation. It's not a driving force. Like I get this pushback all the time and people be like, Tom, look at the Nordic countries per capita. They have like more billion-dollar companies than we have in the US. And then you look at the numbers, dude, and you'll look at one and it'll be like a country will have 7. And then you look at the US, it's like 307. And you go, guys, the scale here is so different that even if on a per capita basis you're doing better, you have to answer the question, why are they not able to attract the talent that the US attracts? And it's because if you go there, you are going to pay north of 50% in tax, everybody. And that has consequences. Also, societally, they don't care about innovation. They don't care about ambition. They got tall poppy syndrome, which I see setting in here in the West. Or in the US. Tall poppy syndrome is, oh man, look at this asshole. He thinks he's better than everybody else. He's like, oh, he thinks he's the next Elon Musk. Fuck this kid. And so they all turn against him and they beat him down in high school and they don't want to see him dream big and they don't want to see people go after something. And so that person gets jumped on, beat down, either from their family, their friends, the media, whatever. In the US, we used to really celebrate that person. Like look, plenty of people thought that I was dumb when I was a kid and was just like, oh, here goes this asshole. But like, I also found a lot of people that were excited that I had such big dreams. And they were like, whoa, this is so cool. And so enough people were like encouraging me and pushing me and like, yeah, you can do it. That it was easy to find a group of friends back in the 90s that were like, bro, you can do this. This is so awesome. Yeah, go. And so just everywhere I turned, like imagine me working in a call center. This is a real story. Working in a call center, I'm like trying to get people to switch to AT&T. I'm like one of those guys that you just never wanted to call you. And I've got dreams of being in film. And people didn't laugh at me or say like, oh, you're never going to make it. They were just like, oh, that's so dope, man. And so like those kinds of things are like, you actually get out of the call center. You actually take the chances. And so many other countries don't have that. All of that said to say, we're losing this. People either don't have a mental model of how critical innovation is. They don't understand what generates innovation, which is a kid who's like hell-bent to get out of their circumstances. They want to show their dad wrong. They want to prove something to somebody. They want to get laid. And so they overshoot the mark and they make this incredible stuff out of passion, a desire to achieve an insane goal, a desire to impress themselves or somebody else. And it's all this like mixture of beautiful things, of wanting to give a contribution to the tribe, of wanting to be worthy of sex, of selfish things. I just want to get rich. Like all that stuff comes together and people understand the way to get ahead is to make something that doesn't exist that people find extremely valuable. And no country in the history of ever has been as good at creating the regulatory framework for that and attracting people the world over. And we are getting worse by the day. And so, yeah, getting people to wake up to that. Optimizing for innovation creates America. Optimizing for social safety net gives you Europe. If you want to be in Europe, go to Europe. It's all old shit. It's all falling apart. I know you used to do cool things, but what have you done for me lately? That's Europe. Dude, I love Europe. Europe is rad. It's a great place to visit. And if you're perfectly fine going to the cultural old folks home, go to Europe. But if you want to be like where things are happening and innovation is really popping off, go to China. Oh, the punchline should have been go to America, but we are losing that mantle about as fast as we can.
Go on the internet, then America wins there. Why is it that society's default slide into this communism, socialism? Because it seems that there's an arc. A company prospers, it goes through a certain amount of empire-ness. And when I say empire-ness, that means prosperity, their kids are good, a generation of things going good. And then it becomes... From Europe, it seems like they were all ruling the world, and then it just became they then became socialist. They wanted to help more people, and then the innovation engine that you turn off kind of switches off. Yeah. What do you think is that last nail in the coffin that switched that innovation off, that then turns it into we have to help other people versus we have to kind of innovate and create new opportunities?
Well, so I'll give it to you through World War I, II, and then the post-World War II order that we had. So World War I, you've got all these countries innovating for no other reason than to fight with each other. They start killing each other a lot. The flu of 1918, post-World War I, kills like 50 million people. I mean, it's just like an extravaganza of death. And so everyone's like, oh, let's never do that again. But then, of course, like economically, you fucked up Germany too much. And if you'd just been chill and let Germany rebuild, you probably would have been fine. But they were so angry and they were so pushed into a terrible economic situation that you get the rise of populism, which gives you Hitler, which then you put that angst together with a then very good at manufacturing Germany, and they do what they did. Now, World War II, the US comes out of World War I unscathed, comes out of World War II not only unscathed, but everybody owes us money. We have a manufacturing powerhouse that now is just like churning on all cylinders. We've got the world's gold. We become the world's reserve currency. And now we go, all right, listen, you dumbasses in Europe just keep fighting each other. We're not going to have that anymore. So we're going to provide your military security. We will keep, basically ends up being Russia. We'll keep Russia chilled out. We're going to keep you guys chilled out, to be honest. None of you guys need to build like crazy militaries. And we're just going to ensure this global order. And all empires get to the point where they're so successful for so long, the people inside start going, why do I have to keep working when there's so much wealth and everybody's doing so well? Why the fuck? And so that class of people gets bigger and bigger, louder and louder. And so they then, to elect people, they start saying, you better give me free shit. And so people start going, yeah, we're going to give you free shit. We're going to raise taxes. These guys are wealthy. They can handle it. And so then you get these two factions warring for each other. You've got the kleptocrats that are like, well, fuck you then. And honestly, like as people get more and more successful, you have to protect against them becoming plutarchs that you fear. It's like the wealthy running everything just with a wealthy cabal, making it better and better for the wealthy and completely ignoring the needs of everyday people. They will 1,000% do that. And you have to protect against that. That's the intolerable inequality I'm talking about. It is the wealthy elite who create the banks that siphon off of everybody. So let's be very clear who the villain is there. So they start doing that. And on top of that, you get the people who just want more free shit. And so then those two start battling it out for the government. This is when you get into the populism. And so now you've got this completely dysfunctional society where people feel like, oh, we can do all this infighting because things have been so good for so long. We've been powerful for so long. This is just how the world is. And they don't realize, no, it's not. And there's someone out there right now who's working harder than you, getting stronger than you. And when you collide, they will beat you. And so right now that's US and China. Before it was basically the great powers of Europe, England, Germany, France, all had their own fall. Spain, same thing. Portugal, same thing, but you really have to go back for that. And they just one by one, their empires have all ended for all the same reasons that the US empire is now ending. And it is very hard to convince a generation of people that prosperity is not the default until they grow up without prosperity. And then they realize, oh yeah, they don't even have a frame of reference for prosperity. Like your daughter, even if everything fell apart now, she still has a frame of reference for prosperity just happens. But God forbid, America continues its decline. She has a kid, then that kid just goes, life's hard. What do you mean? And so that will be their default stance. And this is why you move in that ever loop, because the kids that grow up just going, life's hard, they're tough. And then they ultimately become the revolutionaries that take it back from the communists, the socialists, and then the loop repeats. The only thing is that China's throwing a wrench into this, and they're showing that, oh, you can have both the inequality that's necessary to motivate people and rule with an iron fist. And so that becomes a societal question of what are you willing to tolerate? Like how much oppression to have the upside, and how much risk of one person breaking bad are you willing to take? Democracy is about, I know that the people in power are likely to become evil dickheads. And so we need the ability to vote them out always. We need friction between three branches of government always so that we can keep any one person from becoming a tyrant.
So we don't trust them too much.
Yeah, because like, look, for every George Washington you get, like how many not George Washingtons do you get?
The entire Senate.
So it's like, you got to be real careful. So that's why like Deng Xiaoping was so good for China. It's hard to argue. Yes, he killed thousands of people in Tiananmen Square, but he did give you 100+ million, 400 million people. It was some gigantic number pulled out of poverty. And so it's like, if you said, Tom, trolley problem, you got to kill whatever, 3,000, 5,000 people. But you're going to save millions. What do you do?
I know you're going to love this next story. I'm queuing this up now because I feel like this all connected. We've been doing this a lot lately. Me and Tom have been mind synced where we go on fractals that tie to the last story.
Let's go.
I'm gonna throw it to you, but I just want to say, give the Cliff Notes version of this. Guy has a problem, goes into ChatGPT, cures his dog of cancer. Yes, that is the complete story. Tom, I know this could be the Zero to Founder pitch. You need to get this guy in to do a class and stuff. This is awesome.
So crazy. Guys, a man with no previous experience in biology or medicine used ChatGPT to cure his dog's cancer with a customized vaccine. That was not quite a cure, but it's so close. This story is so miraculous. Now, the guy's name is Paul Cunningham. It's a very strangely spelled name. It's something like that. He just used off-the-shelf AI tools to design the world's first personalized cancer vaccine for a dog. After the injection, his dog's tumor shrank 75% in a month. The dog, rescue dog named Rosie, she's an 8-year-old Staffordshire Shar-Pei mix. She was diagnosed with mast cell cancer in 2024, had a bunch of surgeries, chemotherapy, immunotherapy, all the stuff you'd expect, but none of it worked. The tumors just weren't shrinking. The vets gave her like 1 to 6 months to live, so not a lot. So Paul, he basically did the engineering himself and just goes in, starts asking ChatGPT a bunch of questions, not fancy proprietary AI, just ChatGPT. Same tool right now that I'm guessing is on a bunch of your guys' phones. And Chat pointed him towards genomic sequencing and directed him to the University of New South Wales Center for Genomics. And he convinced researchers there to sequence Rosie's tumor DNA. And then he used that with AlphaFold, which is Google DeepMind's free protein folding AI, to model the specific mutations that were driving the cancer. Okay, so this is super customized, one of one. From that, he designed the blueprint for a personalized mRNA vaccine, produced it in a university lab. And by the way, I think he did this part of it with Grok. And he then convinced a vet to help him administer it. Rosie's main tumor shrunk by 75%, which is freakishly rapid. And then the guy himself admitted, okay, look, this isn't a cure because one of her tumors didn't respond, but he's going to use the same technology to try to design a second vaccine to target that one. So this is absolutely just insane. Now, this is still an extraordinary story, despite the fact that it's not necessarily a cure, but it does point towards a direction of travel for AI and medicine. So expect to see this kind of thing more and more frequently in humans in the near future. And just goes to show there are a lot of patterns, especially in biology, that as humans, we just cannot track all of it. But an AI can go in and find all these crazy relationships that we would otherwise miss. So these big data problems succumb to AI very rapidly. And biology has long felt like, to me, this is a pattern problem. It's not that the body isn't operating on a deterministic system. It's just that there are so many variables that it feels like it's not. And so I think what we're going to see now is all of this determinancy playing itself out as AI goes in and detects all the patterns, sequences everything, takes the large data as more and more people report like, okay, I had this kind of tumor, it's sequenced like this is the treatment, this is how it worked. As more and more people generously submit that information, more and more people or more and more AIs are going to be able to find these patterns and really push medicine forward. This is one of those reasons why you're hearing so much coming out of the medical community saying, whatever you guys think AI has done to your ability to write, to finance, to warfare, it's nothing compared to what it's going to do in biology. And so this is really, really exciting, real world case of somebody actually doing the thing and it having tremendous results. Early days, but this is very exciting.
It's interesting to me. I'm literally was typing a response to somebody in the chat because their first response was negative to this, of like, oh man, some idiot is going to try this and end up killing their dog. And it's like, what? Like, he just did something beautiful. This is a story of determination. This should be a Disney movie. And like, I want Pixar to adopt this, but yet we're automatically going to, well, somebody's going to blow it and mess it up. Yes, but there's people who iron with their clothes still on. We don't talk about those people. Like, let's just.
Somebody made it necessary to write on the like shampoo bottle, don't eat this. Yeah. So yeah.
Like, yes, there are those people in the world. I don't know. I think so often, to your point of, we want society to be this ominous bad thing that we can't control. It's going to kill us. The government is the only thing that can save us. And we always periodically break it down that it's the individual that makes up the government, it's the individuals that make up the society. And we have a story of an individual changing his circumstance directly with something that costs $20. And the first thing we say is, oh man, somebody's going to be killing their dog because it's like, no, this is the type of thing that we should celebrate. This is the type of energy that we should go toward. Instead of being scared of AI, this is the thing that should get people riled up. So
yes, welcome to the West's betrayal of innovation.
It's wild.
Innovation comes at a cost, but you're either willing to pay that cost or you're not. And we are unfortunately losing the appetite for that.
But I don't think, to your point earlier, China is like, if you want innovation, go to China. Yes, I think China could build cool trinkets, but I still think the go-getter spirit, even if it's on life support, is still America.
Obviously, I am Mr. America is the best.
Yes.
For sure.
Okay.
But man, we really do need to snap out of whatever this malaise is. I mean, the malaise is easy. It's a K-shaped economy. When people try and they can't get ahead and everything's getting more expensive, you're demoralizing them. And I think we're doing it on purpose at this point. By tolerating buffoonery, the reality is it is a dual-pronged problem. The wealthy people that understand the system are doing it on purpose because it protects them and siphons money up into their pockets. And the voters are voting for the thing that feels good, even though it's completely detached from the outcomes that they actually want. But it just feels so good, Drew. And when you're desperate, like there was a show called I Shouldn't Be Alive. If you guys never saw it, you should watch it. It is extraordinary. But there was one episode where there were like 4 or 5 people stranded in a lifeboat, and they were floating for God knows how many days. And of course, you start getting very thirsty. And one of the guys is like, I want to drink the seawater. And the guy who understood what will happen said, if you do that, then it's going to make things worse. You will die because you will get dehydrated. So I know it's wet and it is very tempting to drink that water, but it will accelerate your death. And the dumbass did it anyway. He ended up having like these hallucinations, jumped in the water, and immediately got eaten by sharks who had been following the boat for a long story. But
this is like a reality show? I thought this was...
Dude, yes. It is so good. You've never seen I Shouldn't Be Alive?
And he died on
Bro,
TV?
Okay. So sorry. I got to fractal on this for a second. So they don't show him on live TV. So the way that I Shouldn't Be Alive works is it's people retelling a story of something crazy that happened to them.
Gotcha.
Where it's like, here's why I shouldn't be alive.
Okay.
They were like going to take a quick boat trip from like city to city, really close to each other. They go out, hit a storm, lose sight of the shore. One of the women ends up like getting thrown up against a like thick steel cable that holds the mast up, and it lacerated her leg through the muscle all the way to the bone. She ends up getting an infection, dies. Jeez. So now they're in like the dinghy, the little inflatable raft, and it's filling up with pus and all that from her infection. So they're like, fuck, we've got to turn this over because we're all sitting in it. We're all going to get an infection. So they turn it over, and all the juices and her dead body basically are now in the water. And so that's like chumming the water. So now the sharks start following their little dinghy. Now the whole time this episode is playing out, only 2 people are talking. And when it starts, there's 5 people. So I'm like, why are they only interviewing 2 people? And then one by one, first she dies. Then one guy he says, I see an island. I know I see an island. Because I think 2 of them drank the seawater. He's like, I see an island. I've got to go for it. He goes for it, eaten by sharks. Then the other guy is like, I've got to stretch my legs. I've got to stretch my legs. And they're like, what are you talking about? You can stretch your legs in the boat. He's like, no. I got to stretch my legs. He hangs himself off the side of the boat. Sharks grab him immediately and eat him alive. And they're like retelling the story about hearing them scream as they're eating. And I was just like, God damn. Anyway, moral of that story is, however wet seawater is, it will still make you die of thirst faster. So be careful, boys and girls. Be careful.
That's crazy. I never heard of that show. I'm like actually interested in now.
It's so good. The one that always unnerved me the most, there's a thing, I think it's here in California. You can take like this gondola up the side of a mountain, and people do it in the spring and summer and stuff just because it's beautiful. And they tell you like, hey, you can walk around up here at the top. And this couple's like walking off, and they're like, as long as I can hear the group, I'm fine. And so they can hear the group, and they walk down, they can hear this running water, and they're like, really want to see this waterfall. They get to the waterfall, and then they hear the group calling like, hey, everybody, come on, it's time to come back. They can't find their way back. And they end up on an episode of I Shouldn't Be Alive, like completely lost. And that one, because you're just there like on a field trip.
Yeah.
And everything seems so fine. You can hear everybody talking, but you can't find your way back to them. I was like, yo, that's one of those. That just all feels plausible. Don't like that. Oftentimes it's people making a really stupid decision, but that one was just like, just walking around.
Sheesh. Man. Okay, bringing it back to the use of AI to kind of revolutionize this time. We're getting job reports every day. This company's next, this industry's next. I think there was one that we had on the sheet earlier. I didn't pull it up yet. Plumbers is the one thing that's safe for right now. Like everything else has a score at least like 6 or higher. Plumbers is the only thing left. So
you got to pull that graphic up.
Yeah.
This is wild.
It's one of those things that eventually you're going to have to embrace AI. It's kind of like not embracing a cell phone in 2026.
Even if not embracing a computer in 2004. Yeah. Like it's great. Dude, you can't do your job. Like this isn't even, I get it 3 years ago when it first came out, people kind of scoffed and all that. Yeah, it was super janky. It felt like the fun thing you show your family at Christmas. It wasn't real yet. Now, no. Like on the personal level, maybe at the enterprise level, it's still dubious. At the personal level, like this is a no-brainer. Like you must. If you guys aren't looking at your screens right now, so this is the entire job market broken down by size of that industry and its exposure to AI. And there's plenty of green, but boy, oh boy, there's a lot of orange and red in some really big clusters. Basically, the easy way to sum it up is if your job is entirely on a screen, you are toast. So brace yourself. And as somebody, except for when I'm on camera, my entire job is on a screen. So nobody is more aware of how this comes home for me. I know I've said this many times. I feel like with Kaizen, my video game, I am in a race against AI, just making gaming completely irrelevant. So yeah, I watched it do it to film, and now it's coming for me again, Drew.
And as you're scrolling through this, it's pretty much care workers, childcare, healthcare, nurse care, old people care, clean, construction, general maintenance, bartending.
Here's all the bad news for the people in caretaking. Japan has an old people epidemic, and they are solving it with robots. So you have the third largest economy in the world. That's like, we're going to solve this problem. So yeah, I think that one turns yellow, orange, and then red over the next 10 years for sure.
And yeah, and if you handle caretaking, bartending and serving and all that other stuff is definitely in the wrap in that progression on your way there too. So
yeah,
it's definitely getting there.
Yeah, and I mean, look, a lot of what's green now, you probably have 7 to 10 years. So the good news is the world's going to change so much in that time period. Now's not the time to panic. Now's the time to be deploying AI. A lot of this stuff is going to get figured out. It's not like one day, I mean, barring a Terminator style takeover, it's not like this is going to happen overnight. So the people that react now, that start mastering AI now, will buy themselves the most time to react. You'll be in control. The people that bury their head in the sand or try to rebel against it, which I think is going to be a distressing number of people, you will get passed up.
We got some super chats.
Yes.
Let's jump over there.
Yeah.
First
super chat
is from Nathan Dye 5782. I'm not good at math. I made an AI system that I drove to solve a millennium problem with 3,000 plus proofs. It works.
Wow. I mean, that's exciting, man. So bang the drum, get out there. You live in the era of social media. There's nothing stopping you from making noise. You're going to have to train yourself how to be good at it's entertainment, education, and hooks. Like those are the real thing. The hook's largely about the algorithm. The algorithm wants to see that people engage with your content immediately. This is the exact kind of stuff that we teach, by the way, in hyper detail in Impact Theory University. Sign up today. All right.
Joshua Fournier 5887 says, "Thank you, Tom and Drew, for covering Cuba. My wife and extended family are Cuban, and they are following the story closely. Tom, I love your take. I just need to clip it and translate it into Spanish."
Word, man. Please do. Be accurate, but it'd be fun to hear myself in Spanish. That's what AI is for, baby.
Truth Devon says, "Tom, have you seen The Political Compass? I'm surprised you choose Singapore over Switzerland. Singapore is an authoritarian right one-party system. Please look up The Political Compass. I'm curious where you lay in that spectrum."
That's really interesting. So at my glances at Switzerland, it falls more into the what do they call them? Social democracy. There we go. Social democracy, not to be confused with democratic socialists. Social democracy camp. But I'm super open to looking at it. If I just haven't looked deep enough and I have the wrong mental map, maybe we're headed to Switzerland. I want somewhere that's pro-innovation, pro-business, and creates a system that respects people's labor so that you don't end up with a psychotic K-shaped economy, and is extremely high-tech, focused on the future. And I tend to roll everybody in Europe the opposite direction. But if I'm wrong, I'd love to know.
Marcus Aurelius 8605 says, "I was in 6 public health systems in the EU. My girlfriend had cancer, and it took 6 hospitals to get treated. She's a surgeon in one, Italy. Hospitals also let the seniors die. They cost more. I have examples across Europe, including UK."
Yeah, I mean, listen, obviously because of Lisa, I have more than half of my family is in the UK. And every one of them that can afford it has private healthcare. So welcome back. It's like, yes, I get why voters would say, well, we want to at least have the option, but it is a case of you get what you pay for.
James Breachin 4963 says, "Thank you, Tom. I watched Scott Adams every morning until he passed away recently. Was so happy to have found your podcast to fill that void. God bless."
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. So I was never... I didn't engage much with Scott Adams, so I can't say that I know a lot about him, but I did when I saw that he was dying publicly. I don't know a better way to say that. That captured my imagination. I've thought about, now that everybody's always on, one, like even my own career evolution has all been captured on camera. So going from Quest, where I was on camera at the very end of my time there, into when we first started Impact Theory, then when we were doing comics, coming out of that into gaming, like all of that stuff has been on camera. And so for anybody paying attention, and my content has changed so much. I mean, that's the most visible thing. So it's interesting that some of us are also going to go through death on camera. Not literally it being recorded, but like the treatments and the talking about it and being able to say what it's like and to have a sense of community as you go through it. I mean, it's really wild. And so, yeah, it was interesting to see that. And so I thought some of his final messages were awesome. And when my time comes, may I be as clever as I felt he was in the writing. So we'll see. But I'm glad you found me, man. I'm glad that it resonates. It's amazing.
Nice. This political compass test is like interesting. At first I was looking at it for like shits and giggles, but I think there's some questions that as a country we do need to talk about. So like, for example, we're not going to take this whole test, but a couple of these I think actually stand out. So like, if economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. For a sentence like this, it seems like the natural inclination would be like, oh yeah, it should serve humanity. Is there something I'm missing with this, or is that?
No, aggressively not. But you need to understand, one, globalism is not inevitable. So let's talk about that. Yeah. Two, what do you mean by humanity versus transnational corporations? If you mean that we should just take care of everybody and regardless of what happens to the economy, then you're a psychopath. If what you mean is, boys and girls, these transnational corporations will like get together in these secret cabals like we finally got exposed with the Epstein files, and they will steer us towards international banking and basically stealing from everybody through inflation. And now there's nowhere to go. Like you can't flee to a different place because it's just one world government. And so if they say we're going green, damn the consequences, we're going green, damn the consequences. Like that's a nightmare. So you don't want to be on either side of that. You want to say, we want to, this is where just please know that I have biases that are very easy to map. I want somewhere that's pro-business, pro-innovation, understands the need for economic disparity, but understands that that becomes toxic and must be avoided aggressively. You don't want there to be monopolies. You don't want there to be a one-party state. You don't want there to be a whole bunch of things that like will break bad. Mm-hmm. So you have to be very careful of how you can be manipulated both by the right and the left, just to really round it to something. Yeah, beware. So the way that's worded, I would put strongly agree, but that's because I am making assumptions that you actually mean humanity and not left-leaning, and that you actually mean transnational corporations that are working at cross purposes to the people versus just pro-business.
Copy. And then this one, like I always support my country, whether it's right or wrong. I think this is an interesting one too, because we're starting to see even support of the war be splintered. 23% of Republicans opposed the war in Iran. As soon as Trump did it, that number jumped up to 83%. Now they all supported it.
Yeah, this one's tricky. So
the national attention, it kind of pushed them away. So there is this line of, do you stand by your country even when there could be perceived as being in the wrong?
I would say that yes, it's not I'm going to stay with my country no matter what happens, because if I felt like America had been captured by the left or the right, and now it was like a one-party state and we're never like getting back to normalcy, I could see tapping out. But at the same time, I do think everybody should always be on their team's team, if you see what I mean. So that doesn't mean that you like the administration. You might think the administration is doing terrible things, but I would definitely expect you to want, like, let's say it's Germany, it's World War II, you despise Hitler, you want to see the Nazi regime fall, but you want to see Germany rebound and get back to glory and greatness, and that you would want to be a part of both the teardown of the German Empire, the Reich, so that you would be, if, you know, I mean, look, I don't expect anybody to just go out and die, but for the people that get down like that, first of all, you're fucking incredible. But anybody that's willing to make that ultimate sacrifice for the homeland, yeah, I would expect you to go ham against the Nazis and then want to rebuild Germany. I don't expect you to be like, fuck Germany, these kids suck. So I certainly understood why Einstein fled, and at the same time would completely understand anybody that stays or flees still wants to see their country bounce back and rise up. I don't want Iranians to be like, Iran sucks. I want them to say this regime is repressive, and I want a regime that is focused on freedom, innovation, elevation of the nation. Like, fuck yeah. Like, I want Iranians to be proud to be Iranian without having to back the regime, if you see what I mean.
No, I'm with you. 2 more and then we'll wrap it up. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. I feel like that's like a strongly agree for me, but seeing what that means now in the era of TikTok, we're starting to see that defying international law does have its consequences, does have its backlash, and not everybody has the appetite for that. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, justified again is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. I would say military action that defines international law is sometimes highly useful, and utility, as really distressing as people find it, is a thing to focus on. Yeah. You just need to make sure that your goals are honorable. But if your goals are honorable, you should be looking at utility far more than international law.
Copy. And then last, I feel like you talked about this earlier with the Tucker Carlson thing. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment.
Strongly agree.
Yeah, so I thought that was really interesting to be worded on a political compass test. But yeah, whoever shot at Truth Devin, I think this was it. Whoever said this, sent this over. Thank you. This was interesting.
Very interesting.
That's all I got. Happy Monday.
All right, everybody, there it is. Yet another Monday. We made it, and I cannot wait to see you guys on Wednesday. And as always, remember, we've got an upcoming Impact Theory University live masterclass, and Ryan is going to drop into the chat that link so you guys can sign up. I believe, is it March 21st? Am I making up that date?
I don't have the dates.
Okay. It's coming up soon. Ryan will get you the link. Check it out.
I actually don't have the link. Do you have it, Drew?
If you're looking to start a business using AI, we got you covered. All right, everybody. Have an amazing Monday and Tuesday, and we'll see you Wednesday. Peace.